My name's Jody Underwood. I'm president of the School District Governance Association. Thank you all for coming and taking time out of this beautiful Saturday to be here, even with that glare on the highway, which was really fun to drive through. We have a panel of speakers today to talk about transparency. And this should be, I don't know, can you guys hear me okay? Or shall I just talk like this? But I like the mic, no. So, all right, so when there are questions, please use the mic here so that it actually gets recorded in the video. So everything is being recorded, so it is going to be public. That's just for you all to know. We have speakers. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. They are all SDGA members, as it happens. You guys ready?
Ready?
Okay, and you're going to all introduce yourselves, yeah?
Sure.
All right, great. Thank you all.
Okay. I'm Bill Foote. I'm a school board member. Oh, Mike. My name is Bill Foote. I'm the school board member in Bedford. Everything I say here is from me. It's not from the board itself, so take it at that.
And I'm Tom Murray. I'm a former Windham school board member, former vice chairman.
I'm Rich Gerard. I am an at-large member of the Manchester Board of School Committee, and that means I have the joy of representing the entire city of Manchester and one of its 12 wards. Now, I got a cheat sheet here that
You're not really talking into the mic. I hate to say it.
Is it on?
Do you want to try the wireless?
Sure.
I don't know who's on.
Test, test,
Switch.
test. Test, test.
Gotta get through technology. There we go.
You know what? The mic we were using before was off. Hello? Hello? Hello?
That's better.
There it is.
Should we shut this one off?
Yeah, if you use one, I think for right now.
It's off. Yeah, it's off.
Here we go.
Test, test. Feedback. You know, when we asked for feedback, this is not what we meant. You know, you guys should pull it in. I kind of feel like, like you're all sitting at church or something. I gave up throwing my coffee at people a long time ago.
Start again.
Yeah, and you know what? Why don't we start again? And this is what Donna sent me and asked us to address when we introduce ourselves. So,
Okay.
All right. First item was prepare a few sentences about your school district service and what transparency issues most exercised you. This is my 8th year on the Bedford School Board. I won on my 5th try, so persistence is one of my characteristics. But we had an insular school board that, because the town was so polarized at the time, if you weren't part of the in-groups, nothing would ever happen. So you either get a pendulum one way hard one way or hard the other. And just through a mathematical oddity, I was elected in, and I think I was the one that tipped the balance to more of a, I don't want to say balance, but they expected me to come in as a combative member, and I really wasn't. I was more like a Jiminy Cricket, just keep needling them about the things that they had been doing and hoping that they wouldn't do it again. And so far, I think I've been fairly successful. We had, they pretty much spent every year $2 or $3 million of unexpected funds from the previous year, and that was something that I wanted to stop because basically they're taking taxes from the future year to pay for stuff that they wanted this year, and that was getting to be fairly expensive. They would blow through as much as $1 million a year on things that they wanted that weren't in the budget that the voters never got to review. Fortunately, we don't do that anymore. In the high school, we opened it up in 2006. We had a program called International Baccalaureate. We spent a lot of money on that, and for the benefit it offers, it's money thrown down a rat hole. If we had a robust AP program, we'd be able to cover a whole lot more things, benefit the kids a whole lot more. And so far, through institutional inertia, we haven't been able to do anything about that. But that is more of a political question that you need a board majority on to affect change, and so far that majority hasn't shown up. I'm hoping next year that we would actually have enough for us to do an actual process review of the high school and see about changing that one out. The year before I got on, I don't know if anybody remembers, but we had the nickel and dime fiasco and the water for elephants fiasco, where teachers would bring material into class without having any kind of oversight, not at the board level, but even at the high school level, where the teachers would decide what the kids would read, and some of that stuff was fairly racy. If anybody's ever read Waters for Elephant, there's a couple of racy sections in there. Yeah, best community television in the world was when an irate parent got up and read the racy section for the record. Back then, the school board would have to sit there and just take it stone-faced. So I've got that video someplace, and I watch it from time to time just to get a good chuckle. We had been default budgeting incorrectly. We didn't know that. We had a former board member from Londonderry come up and explain to us how we were doing it wrong. Richard Evans. The guy's very bright. The guy is actually very correct, too. So we took it upon ourselves to offer a more flexible, I shouldn't say flexible, more accurate way to default budget, so that instead of having default budgets that were greater than the operating budget, we actually had default budgets with deltas. And this year the delta is $1.3 million, which some people would say should be more, and I think it probably could be more too, but I think I'm more of the fiscal hawk on the board than the other members. But it's still a bright line difference between a default and an operating budget. And if anybody's been reading the papers, probably since July, we let our superintendent go over the guidance counselor fiasco with the Christy Dorbick arrest. She worked in Exeter for a year before she was arrested, and the year before that she was in Bedford. And we had employees that went to her sentencing hearing that was reported that they were actually supporting Christy Torbick despite the sentencing hearing. And it was kind of a muddled situation. We're actually still going through that. There's two things that should have that happened. It's kind of like a seismological change. We've got a P wave and an S wave. One is fast and one is slow. The fast thing got our superintendent released, and the slow thing is something that we're still going through. But the problem with that is it's a personnel discussion that you can't talk about. There's details that are not in public that make us look like we're trying to do something that we're not. It's more a question of, is it fair to the district? Is it fair to the employee? Is it fair to the stakeholders? That is the kids and the taxpayers. So we're still wrestling with that, and that's the slow part of that seismological change. And then as a board, I think we strongly support transparency. We just had our budget hearing last week, and the budget had actually been moved, and a parent got up and said, hey, I want to ask one more question about the budget. The moderator said, that's out of order, you can't ask that question. And all five of us says, no, we'll take the question. And the moderator was upset because that's not how the process works. But we're not trying to hide anything on the budget. That's a 2-month work project, and we want to make sure that the taxpayers understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So it wasn't a rough question or it wasn't a hard question. We just answered the question that was put before us. So if anybody says that Bedford is being not transparent about something, it's only about the things that we can't be transparent about, like the personnel issues. So that's what's exercised us, and I think we're kind of moving towards a good place to be. And then I hear stories about the stuff in Manchester, the stuff in Nashua, and I just shake my head. So it's more a question of, that's why I joined the SDGA, because I want to hear about this other stuff so that we don't fall into the same kind of trap. But that's where I'm coming from. So,
Okay, great, thank you both.
Good morning.
I'm going to jump in. I'm not officially not doing anything. I'm not officially moderating, but I'm wondering if there's any questions and make it interactive as we go on. Does anybody
Absolutely.
want to address anything that's already been said? And I think you should all feel free. It's more fun when it's interactive, in my opinion. And use a microphone. What?
No, finish the
You can
introductions.
use that one.
Jody,
Yeah.
finish the introductions and then.
Okay.
Go ahead, if there's any questions for Bill or for Rich, let me know.
Sure.
Good morning. First of all, thank you to the SDGA for having me this morning. My name is Tom Murray. I'm a former Windham School Board member. My involvement in school board actually came about 5 years ago. I just I'm a contractor, that's my profession, happened to watch a school board meeting, and never watched one before. And while I was on there, I was watching them talk about some portable classrooms that we had. And in doing so, I quickly realized how erroneous some of these numbers that were being given to the current school board. So I got in my truck, drove down there, and asked to speak. And unfortunately, I was shut down by the chairman at the time, saying there would be no public input. So I found that very surprising. Having sat on a ZBA for 8 years and listened to testimony from both sides and go back and forth, I found it very odd not to be able to give public input. So I quickly challenged the then chairman to go ahead and speak, and basically thrown out some legalese that I would go ahead and file action. He finally acquiesced and let me speak. And it was ironic because the numbers that were being given were around $800,000-900,000 to do some work to these portables, when I knew in actuality there were a couple $100,000 worth of work. And I actually had the gentleman from Trident basically make a statement publicly, says, well, we really shouldn't open the bids. So I think that pretty much said everything. So that was my introduction to the school board. And then, so I then decided I'm going to start attending some more school board meetings. And right after that was another one that came up. It was called Synergistics. And Synergistics was a company that basically comes to all the municipalities. And if you ever research or Google them, you'll see them on the FBI list and the Massachusetts Do Not Buyer Beware list. And basically, there were a bunch of former Enron guys, and they write software, and they basically tell you how to turn off the lights and turn down the thermostat. And you pay yearly. I think that we were in there for about a $700,000 no-bid contract that you cannot get out of. It actually becomes part of your default budget. So quickly, we wanted out of that, so we challenged the then BA as well as the then board. And as a matter of fact, I went again for public input, and this time I was, not surprisingly, shut down again. But even more importantly, they called the police on me. So at that point in time, that's when I realized I have to run for school board. And I did, and I was overwhelmingly elected. And so then, along with a good friend of mine, Ken Iring, some of you in the room might know him, he became my partner in crime, or should I say partner unveiling the crimes. And so we set out, he was the chairman, I was the vice chairman, and we set out for 3 years, and we basically revamped our entire district. And there was a tremendous amount of corruption that was going on within the district, and that's what I want to speak to you guys tonight and try to give you guys some insights as to what some of these municipalities, and I'm not speaking to all, we have some really good administrators out there, really good teachers out there, people that are wanting to do the right thing, but it's kind of like Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. And that's really what you guys want to be doing as school board members in the audience. You guys want to be looking at these things. So I want to take the last 3 years of my experiences and share those with you, so you guys can bring something to your communities too, so we can make sure that the money's actually getting to the classroom and that it's effectuating what it's supposed to, and that's, educating the children. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Rich, but I have a list of specific things that we can get into a little later in the discussion.
Crop TV.